Let's see.
Okay. So we hope you guys had some great conversations while we were, while you were broken up into your rooms, and we want to hear, a summary of what was going on. So room one, Allison, Durandi, Juanita, what, sum up in a few minutes what you guys talked about.
You don't ask for a lot, do you, Faith? A few minutes. Obviously, we were all very impressed, took different things away. I think we started off talking about, his use and sharing of personal stories in the work of advocacy and change, and how that really just hits people and helps you to sort of get a better understanding of the issues. I think we all appreciated that. We spoke some just about the work and action that needs to happen moving forward, and how do we move from that kind of understanding to action. Spoke about ACEs and trauma and how that impacts and where resilience comes in. But it would be best if we didn't require our children, especially, to be resilient when they are in situations that are, no fault of their own. And so, how do we, again, as I said, sort of take away those pieces? We spoke also of the kind of overlap or intersection of poverty and racism, which, I just said I personally often have trouble sort of, seeing them as these two sort of different systems when they are often connected in ways. And that hearing from someone like Wes Moore, I thought he did a good job of sort of bringing those two bridges together. But we also, kind of shook our heads too. And where do we go from here? We all certainly were impressed by the demonstrations and sort of the next younger generation of what they are demanding of our government and of our society. And as I always said, I think we can learn a lot from them. But as Wes also said, it's for all of us to, be in our lane of doing what we do, so that, somebody else is in this lane and that we kind of have it covered. And we sort of looked at it from people who are more grassroots and local focused versus state or even federal, that, we need that whole continuum kind of covered. And so I think those are just some of the pieces that we spoke about. But Durandi, or I don't know if Juanita's still here, anything else you would add? Yeah, I think that was it. Those are the main pockets.
And I know the work that you and Durandi both doing your organizations, we all collaborate and work together and, enhance one another by breaking down the silos and making sure that we're really trying to get to the issues working together. So I know you guys had that frame of thought even prior to hearing the talk, but it's nice to have it reinforced into us. Okay, room two, Shirley. I'm just going to call you out.
Okay. Wow, where to start? It was a really wonderful conversation, but we honed in on two quotes that Wes had made. The power of this moment's not our purse, but to use our voice, and that individual good deeds alone will not lead us out of darkness. If we don't use our voice, we're only going to be cleaning up debris. Because it made us talk a great deal about how within Westchester County, there are many organizations providing support services, providing relief to communities in need, and the importance of addressing the barriers and the systemic barriers, the importance of removing those barriers and uniting together as organizations to raise issues to a higher level. So it's not just, I'm sorry?
I was joking. I said, thanks for the plug.
Yes, really. There was a great deal of conversation about uniting to raise, to be advocates and to raise issues, particularly within Westchester County that has such significant inequities in wealth, health, education, income inequality, food insecurity. That there are so many people with resources that are good and well-intentioned and volunteer and do a lot of support, but are we communicating fully and carefully what the systemic issues are that are creating these philanthropic opportunities, and how can we as a community Unite to create, I think Colleen recommended a task force that made up of multiple organizations to address categories of systemic issues and to bring this to the forefront. You know, ensuring that we also are aware that we're not shaming or blaming people of privilege who want to do good, but rather encouraging people to understand their privilege and to then share their privilege with others in a way to address the needs that exist in our communities. To understand how we as a community all suffer when there is disparity, that lifting up communities in need lifts up everyone. Anything else, Patty, Colleen, Avery, Laura?
No, I think we all felt that there needs to be action as a result of today, that the conversation just can't end. And one thing I would suggest is that maybe the new Center for Racial Equity, along with its partners, could really convene the conversation, convene the group to get action. So Tom, the ball's in your court, and Maria and Allison and everybody, let's all come together and do something. Start the action. It can't just be talk.
Yes, I agree.
Agreed.
Agreed. We're stronger together.
We are.
So Mr. Kesting, you were the person in room 3 for the entire time. So
I'm the only one left in this room. So I will freely tell you that in group 3, we solved all the world's problems in 30 minutes. And you can
That's right.
all go home and rest assured that it is taken care of.
And the answer to all of it is 42. So that's
okay, there's only 2 geeks on this call.
who got that joke? It's all right.
Well, I guess it needs to be explained then.
It's,
Go on. So what was discussed?
We came at it from an understanding that all 3 of us represented very different kinds of organizations. Like many of you, we discussed the siloing of behaviors and actions. We went over, when Tom entered the room, the fact that government, although in many cases a partner, is also part of the problem, in the sense that what it needs or what it wants is to make it easier for them. And it often makes it harder for the client and harder for the organization to do what's right for the client. We talked about the need for clients to be partners in the process, not recipients of charity, so that they don't sacrifice their dignity for getting the help that they need in order to achieve their goals and objectives. And that organizations really have an obligation to remember the dignity of the people that they're serving, and not make the expectations of them that, or have the expectation of them that they should be grateful for receiving. It's not about charity, it's about partnership. And when we build together, we build a better world. When we float all the boats, everybody does better. And when we allow one boat to sink, you can be sure that the people on that boat are going to pull down the boat next to them. And that should not be the objective of government, and should certainly not be the objective of nonprofits. So we talked about how groups can work together and the need to figure out the ways to break down silos. And to some extent, that also has to do with the way things are funded. If you're always in competition with your neighbor for a set amount of funds, it becomes hard to work with them and not try to sabotage them. And we all have to find ways to overcome that. I did mention that our organization has set up what we call human rights cities around the world, which brings NGOs, nonprofits, government, and the business community together at the same table to work on these things, where government can just be a member of the group. It can't lead the group. So it offers people an opportunity to go back into their communities and find out what the community actually needs, not what organizations or government wants to provide. And very often the needs are very different from what's offered. And those are, I've also just years ago offered Human Rights City work to volunteers, Westchester or Volunteer New York, whatever the organization is called. It was momentarily accepted and then dropped. And the current head of that organization won't return my calls. So we still extend the offer, but that's the kind of stuff that we were discussing.
Great, thank you for sharing. Laura, would you mind sharing what group 4?
Yes, I think John and I are the last ones here from group 4, but we had a great session. I think we discussed a lot of the things, not to repeat everything that everyone said. We did share a lot of personal stories. We focused a bit on, I think the statistic that Wes Moore shared of 24% of people living in poverty were those that lost their jobs during this pandemic, and focusing on how that affected our communities. But also what I wanted to add that I really think was beneficial to our group was the virtual format of this. And so Val and I were in a group with John, who's from Iowa, and we were with Flo, who's with the United Way in Canton, Ohio. And I thought that was something that was really great, in that we were able to have this conversation, not just here in our Westchester and Putnam communities or, whatnot, but really discussing with people across the country. And I think that was, just something to make a note of, that I thought was really enjoyable.
Great, thank you. Thank you for your feedback. Tom, I'm going to throw it to you.
Wonderful. Well, this concludes the summit. Thank you for being a part of this breakout session, continuing the conversation led by the amazing Wes Moore this morning. Thank you, Shirley. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Durandi, for leading our breakout sessions. I'll thank the others who have left separately, but we appreciate your time as steering committee members for the summit, and again today as leaders for the breakout sessions. And thank you, each and every one of you, Juanita, Robert, John, Patty, Colleen, Esmeralda, Flo, for joining us and being a part of the summit. We hope it in some small way helped you be a better version of yourself. And if so, that you'll continue to pay that forward. So thank you, everybody. Be safe, be well, and continue to fight the good fight out there. Be well.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Great
Great
job.
summit.
Thanks.